Hey, what's good? What's good? What's good? Welcome to D Smith Let's Discuss. Welcome to the session right here. And this looks very bad for your boy. Oh boy. Somebody put his name in an unaliving of XXX Tentacion, according to Law and Crime. More information to come out. But for me, this is a clear signal from Universal Music Group, UMG, to old boy stand down. Stand down before more information come out. Do you really want to go to war with us? I'm pretty sure UMG has text messages. I'm pretty sure they have video. I'm pretty sure they have a lot of information they can release on old boy. I'm right or wrong, drop a comment. Let's discuss. Do I want old boy out to culture? Yes. Get out of here. Get your butt out of here. But let's react to this video. Let's go.
To spend that blood money on sneakers and jerseys, so you reveal to the court the value you place on the human life that was taken.
One of the men convicted in the 2018 murder of rapper XXXTentacion is now appealing his conviction, and his legal team is focusing a lot of their attention on a major celebrity, Drake. We are going to explain the connections and the arguments as we sit down with Mauricio Padilla, the attorney for the convicted killer, Dedrick Devon Williams. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Dedrick Devon Williams, who's behind bars for life for murdering rapper XXXTentacion, is now appealing his case, his conviction, his sentence, on the grounds that he did not receive a fair trial. And this is in part due to what his attorneys say is the exclusion of evidence that pointed the finger or maybe pointed the finger at other people. And one of those people whose name has come up is rapper Drake.
So do you believe in coincidence? Do you believe in that? Yes or no? Drop a comment. All of a sudden this information coming out. Think about it. That's my theory.
I want to quickly get you up to speed on this case before we get into these new allegations, these new arguments. Maybe they're not necessarily new if you break down this case. So last year, 3 men, including Williams, were convicted and sentenced to life in prison for the 2018 killing of the star rapper. And to be more precise, they were convicted of first-degree murder and armed robbery in connection with the shooting death of the 20-year-old artist whose legal name was Jose Onfoy. Now, the jury deliberated a lot. They deliberated for a little more than 7 days before returning a guilty verdict. This was for Michael Boatwright, Dedrick Williams, and Trayvon Newsom. Now, this murder occurred on June 18, 2018, outside of Reba Motorsports. It's a motorcycle dealership in Deerfield Beach. It's a suburb of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And XXXTentacion had just withdrawn $50,000 in cash from a bank. He was leaving the store with a friend when his BMW was blocked by an SUV. In fact, surveillance footage from the scene actually captures this shocking moment as 2 masked gunmen, later identified as Boatwright and Newsom, emerged from the vehicle, confronted the rapper at his driver's side window. There is a brief but very violent exchange with one of the men shooting XXX repeatedly. Afterwards, they snatch a Louis Vuitton bag containing the cash that the rapper had just withdrawn, and they speed away in the SUV. Williams was accused of being the driver of that SUV. And the friend, by the way, who was with XXXTentacion during that attack wasn't injured, but he witnessed the murder. And the jury's deliberation was lengthy, but ultimately they concluded that the evidence presented by the prosecution was sufficient. It was beyond a reasonable doubt, enough to convict all 3 defendants. And that evidence included the surveillance footage, it included cell phone videos of the defendants flashing cash right after the shooting. It included incriminating text messages from Boatwright, including one right after the shooting saying, "Tell my brother I got money for the new phone." And then, just minutes after that, sending in a separate text message a news article about XXX getting shot. And I also have to mention the key testimony of the trio's accomplice, Richard Allen, who claimed that he was a part of this robbery and he implicated the defendants. He pled guilty to second-degree murder for his role in this killing. Now, as I mentioned, Williams is appealing this decision, and a big focus of this is on Drake. There's also other issues that they're bringing up, so I want to get into it right now. And for that, I want to bring on Williams' defense attorney, Mauricio Padilla. Thank you so much for coming on, Mauricio.
A lot of Drake fans are like, damn, this now. A lot of Drake fans depressed, boy.
Thanksgiving. Thanks for coming on right afterwards. So I wanted to talk about this with you, and we're going to get into more specifics of the appeal. But overall, big picture, big theme, what are you and the rest of the defense counsel arguing here?
Well, I am not arguing it. I'm not his appellate attorney. I was the trial counsel, so I'm just referencing what Mr. Matanzo, which is his appellate attorney, has stated in the brief. There's so many errors that it takes a while to even break it down. One of the main errors in my opinion in the case, which I had to sit through, argue, and live it, was the fact that in December of 2020, I filed a witness list. The state's reaction to that was to file a motion saying, we want the court to strike all of his witnesses, that's not even something that's legal or that you could do. You have to itemize who you want stricken. You just can't shotgun approach and say, I want all of his defense witnesses stricken, but the state attorney did that. In a hearing that I had to defend, myself in that motion, the court didn't grant that, but the court instructed me to file a pleading, which was the nexus in my defense witnesses and what nexus they had to my theory of defense, which I argued was inappropriate because at the end of the day, you're ordering me to give the state a blueprint of what my defense is going to be. But I was ordered to do it, and I did it. When prior to Mr. Onfroy, which I'll refer to him as X for this interview because his state name was XXXTentacion, which was the victim in this case. Prior to him being murdered, he had posted on Instagram, if anybody kills me, I'm snitching right now, it's champagne popping.
Damn. He knew old boy was I'm pretty sure he didn't do it. He played a role in it for sure. Allegedly, my theory, it is what it is. He played a role, allegedly. He did that, allegedly.
I'm paraphrasing, but something to that effect, right? So, imagine, the decedent said prior to his death, if anybody kills me, it's Champagne Poppy, which is Drake's Instagram name. I laid out in extreme detail all of my defense witnesses list, which included many rappers, because at the end of the day, the victim in this case was a rapper. He had feuds, ongoing public feuds with not only Drake, but a lot of rappers that are either signed to OVO or related to Drake in some way, including 600 Breezy, which is a Chicago-based rapper, and a rapper that's from Toronto by the name of, he goes by Top 5, which is Hassan Ali. And I had to lay that all out in detail. The court was fully aware of my theory of defense. Prior to that, I filed a motion to perpetuate the testimony of Livingston Allen, which goes by the name of DJ Academics, because DJ Academics was friends with X and had posted long...
No, DJ Academics gonna eat this one up, boy. He gonna eat this one up. Guaranteed.
YouTube, content regarding this beef. He actually posted YouTube saying that he was on the phone with X discussing the issue and the beef that he had with Drake, and specifically X had either said or posted something about Drake's mom, and he had posted a picture of a Drake lookalike with semen on his face, and he wanted DJ Academics to post it on his own site, and he said, I'm not going to do that. And in that conversation, DJ Academic says that you better be careful, because even though, like, and I'm paraphrasing again, even though he's not a gangster, you may be pushing him. As a reaction to that conversation, X goes and says that he takes it out off the post off of his website or off of IG, and he says that his Instagram was hacked. I laid that out in my motion to perpetuate testimony, which a motion to perpetuate testimony is when you have a witness that is relevant to your defense and that lives beyond the jurisdictional limits of the court, and that you feel that you're not going to be able to bring them into court. So I'm basically asking the court to allow me to go to California or wherever I have to go, depose this individual, and now with his deposition, if he doesn't show up, I could use it in my defense or in my case in chief, right? So I did that, argued it to the court, and the court, in a reaction, basically said, I'm not going to grant your motion to perpetuate testimony, just take his depo. Let's just take it. So, okay, fine. I set a notice of hearing, went and served Drake in his castle in Beverly Hills.
There's something that you mentioned that I want to talk about this. So first of all, there was this deposition that was taken of XXXTentacion's mother, Cleopatra Bernard. She testified that Envoy had this ongoing feud with Mr. Graham, Aubrey Graham, Drake. She said this feud with Graham included throwing shots at Envoy and lyrics from one of Graham's songs. You mentioned that controversial statement that he made, if anyone tries to kill me, it was champagne poppy. The question I want to start with as we get into the Drake conversation, are you arguing, were you arguing, or is appellate attorneys arguing that Drake was a part of this killing, that he was the one who did this, or are you arguing that it should have just been allowed, you should have been allowed to present evidence to suggest there were other potential leads that law enforcement really didn't look at into this case? So again, what exactly are we suggesting? Are you suggesting that Drake had a part in it, or that just he wasn't looked into and chose a sloppy investigation and not a fair trial?
Well, in the brief and in what I was arguing in court is the latter. We are a defendant has every right to defend himself and to show reasonable doubt wherever it may be, and to fully investigate and articulate to a jury an alternate shooter defense or an alternate, a defense where someone else, committed this crime. Am I going to sit here and tell you that Drake was holding a gun or Drake? But the facts, as they are stated by X's own mother, is that she knew about the beef with Drake and with Migos. She knew about the violence between Migos and her son, where there was a violent episode.
That's another thing. When people see the facts or the evidence, they ignore it and they come up with their own conclusions.
He knew about 600 Breezy, which is a known admitted gang member from Chicago, going to South Florida and posting on social media saying that he's blicked up, which means that I have a gun, and she was concerned about it. She testified in the depot that she discussed it with her son. She testified that the reason that she wanted additional security with him the day he died was because of this beef with Migos and everything that we're discussing. So it was relevant, and for many months during the trial, January, February, even February 7th of 2023, the judge is agreeing with me. Okay, now there comes a moment and a hearing. He goes ahead and Drake hires, after the judge enters a rule of show cause, basically saying a purge date. You have to appear for depo on this day, or I'm going to do a writ of bodily attachment. He then goes and hires Brad Cohen, a friend of the show, friend of mine as well, an excellent attorney, and Brad files several motion to quash the subpoena, and he files a motion for protective order. We go back and forth, and the judge says, and the first time that Brad shows up to court, he says, you know what, I'm gonna quash the rule of show cause. He's hired counsel. You guys can communicate and figure out when this step was gonna happen. Okay? So we go back and forth. We can't agree to it for various reasons, and I'm not gonna get into settlement negotiations on the show, but we can't agree. We go into court February 24th, I believe, on his motions. At that time, James Beard, which is the process server that served Drake, appeared as a witness, and I wanted to show video that he took of the actual attempted service where it shows Drake's bodyguards or the people that are in front of his house refusing to cooperate. It showed one of Drake's employees kicking the subpoena down the road that leads to his mansion, and the judge didn't allow me to show that. Despite not allowing me to put forth.
I wonder when that video is gonna come out. They got video evidence. It's gonna be leaked real soon, man. Warning shot.
That evidence, the judge did a 180 from telling me to figure it out, coordinate it, take the devil, did a 180, told me, why are you involving him? Granted the motion for protective order, granted the motion to quash my subpoena, allowed Mr. Cohen to argue California law without having a California expert there, and basically kind of chastised me about why are you bringing them into it. And as a matter of fact, he even we had taken the deposition of one of X's relatives regarding this beef, and she denied it, and the court said in open court, even his relative said that it didn't exist, and I said, yeah, well, she's lying because the whole world knows about this beef. So for her to sit here and say that she didn't know about it it's on her credibility. So despite all of this, he does a 180. He not only grants the motion for protective order, basically saying that I can now serve him again.
Okay.
And it quashes the subpoena, but the state attorney, sensing there's blood in the water, says, Judge, I'm going to renew my motion to strike all his witnesses. Okay? Or tennis, no notice. And he says, I'm not going to do that, but I am going to strike Mr. Graham. So he struck in the middle of the trial. He struck Drake from my witness list, which is completely inappropriate, considering the history of the case.
Talk to me real quick about why you think the judge did this, because in the appellate brief, and correct me if I'm wrong, there is an accusation that the court might have been biased because of Drake's celebrity status. Correct me if that allegation is wrong, and in your opinion, why do you believe the court ultimately wouldn't allow the deposition of Drake?
I'll say that Judge Dusan was a complete gentleman to me, and it was a pleasure to try the case in front of him. I do think that he made various reversible errors, and I think from the beginning,
man, these judges be wilding. They be wilding.
Made a lot of calls that were unconstitutional, not legal. This being one of them. I don't want to speculate as to why, but when you're dealing with someone like Drake, which he's not a celebrity, he's a super celebrity. He's like in the stratosphere of fame. So when a judge does a 180 like that, I'll let the viewers or other people figure out why they think that it happened. But I'm not gonna speculate as to why it happened. But
no, I get that. I do want to ask you this, because this is another part of the appeal. And that is with respect to the testimony of this gang expert, which was excluded in a pretrial hearing. And the defense, my understanding, wanted to call Jesse De La Cruz, who they claimed, discovered visual evidence that Drake could have had ties to the same organization as a co-defendant in this case, Robert Allen. And I believe the brief states, Dr. Cruz's research revealed photos of Mr. Graham throwing the same gang signs as Allen. And Allen is that accomplice who I mentioned before who testified against his co-defendants. But Cruz also revealed that people who knew Drake were allegedly seen in XXXTentacion's neighborhood threatening him before he died. The brief reads, social media posts showed these same known Graham associates were seen in Envoy's neighborhood threatening him just prior to the murder.
So individuals is going to start looking this up right now. They're doing research right now.
And then they say, is this connection that Cruz made shortly after XXX was killed? The brief writes, Mr. Graham released a song entitled Triple X with suspicious lyrics. SMS Triple X, that's the only time I shot below the neck. And Dr. Cruz found another connection between the murder and Drake's lyrics in the song I'm Upset. The song I'm Upset contains lyrics regarding Louis bags for body bags. The implication there being that Drake was referencing murder. But ultimately, Cruz was completely excluded from the trial, and the jury did not hear any of his findings. Mauricio, I have that right. And can you emphasize that a little bit more? Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yes. Okay. So, Dr. De La Cruz did proffer to the court everything he stated regarding the song lyrics, the fact that Drake was throwing gang signs that were the same gang signs that Allen was throwing up in different social media posts. The court strikes Dr. De La Cruz, which is a known gang expert and well known in his field, has testified over 150 times in trials. They allowed the state to put their own gang, which really bolstered a lot of what Dr. De La Cruz said regarding the necessity to bring out this testimony. I don't believe that based on Dauber, which is the case that we look at when analyzing whether an expert is if it's appropriate for an expert to testify, I don't believe that was a legal call. I think it was error for him to do that and not allow us to put forth that testimony. And we put up pictures of Dre with Lil Wayne throwing up and other evidence that Drake is out there flaunting gang ties. We put forth evidence of Hassan Ali, which is top 5, out there openly claiming on social media and video that he's Drake's shooter. And part of the theory of defense is to show, listen, even though these people are entertainers, okay, there's a gang-related portion of it. There's a gang-related side to it. And X's own mother testified that she knew about this, that she knew about when 600 Breezy traveled from wherever he was, whether Chicago to South Florida. She knew about it, she talked to him about it. So this case has more than ample evidence and ample reason to involve a gang expert.
To be clear, though, you were allowed to argue that someone else could have been responsible for this killing because you cross-examined Allen on cross-examination, suggesting that he had this link to Drake. But my understanding is you're arguing now that the trial court had put limits on your cross-examination of Allen.
I wonder how Drake fans gonna spin this, boy. Let the machine begin.
That violated your client's rights. Am I misunderstanding that?
No, you're 100% correct. And they did it not only with Allen, but they did it all throughout the trial.
Okay.
With Allen admitted that his father, known drug dealer, known firearms dealer, as the brief states, produced at least one of the guns that was used in this. When I asked him about his father and ties to Toronto and drug dealing, the state objected, and the judge didn't allow that question. So it was a constant battle for me to try and basically do my job and show where reasonable doubt existed. With Allen, with Detective Curcio, the problem here is also that the state attorney, on direct of Detective Curcio, which was the lead detective in the case, she asked, do you have any information that Drake was involved in this? And that was before the court struck him. So whatever reasons may have existed, the moment that the state attorney opens up their mouth and says that, now he's really at issue. Because now
You're opening the door. You're opening the door to that coming in.
Yes. And not only was it an issue of her mentioning it with Detective Curcio, but she asked him, you actually were able to verify whether or not Drake was in South Florida at the time. So in cross-examination, I asked, why would you have to verify if he was in South Florida? Why? Because he's a person of interest. And then I had to further ask, well, what did you do to, and I'm paraphrasing, what did you do to figure out whether he was in South Florida? He says, oh, my partner checked social media. So then I said, okay, so in a homicide case, the best that Broward Sheriff's Office has for a jury is to peep his Instagram. So it was basically breaking down the poor job that BSO did in their investigation and the tunnel vision that they had, and the fact that none of this was in the report. So you felt it important enough to check and verify whether or not he was in South Florida, but you never memorialized it in your report, and I'm not allowed to ask about it.
Well, he also testified, Detective Curcio, that he learned that Envoy, XXX, had been attacked by members of Migos, right? Migos is the rapper that's associated with Drake. Was that came in, and again, you weren't able to expand upon that?
Not only did that come in, but when I asked him in cross-examination, isn't it true that the first time that the name Migos comes out in this case was a month after the murder in the first conversation that you yourself had with the cooperating co-defendant Allen? He didn't remember. I had to refresh his recollection, and right there in the transcribed conversation, it basically showed that Allen, the cooperator, said the name Migos in the first conversation that they had. So it basically showed that I wasn't making this up. Like I'm not creating it. The facts were there before I even ever alleged their involvement or filed a motion in court. They're checking to see whether or not Drake is in South Florida. That was years before I mentioned it. And Allen is saying is talking about Migos to the lead detective a month after the murder. This is years before I filed anything regarding my theory of defense.
So yeah, do you believe in coincidence? So a theory of mine is UMG put this out here. You want to play games? Let's play games. It is what it is. We gonna see who's gonna blink first. Let's go. I'm here for it. Drop a comment. Thank you for attending the session. Let me know what you think. I'm out of here.